Hello, welcome to this Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob. Welcome to Stream Streak Day 90. All right. Honestly, it doesn't feel like it does feel like it. I don't think I'm noticing at this stage. 90 days in the can, in the hunker, in the bunker, and there's no one better I'd want to bunker with me than this hunker right here, Mr. Owen Jackson. Yeah, how are you?
I'm very well. Yes. How are you?
I'm great, thank you very much. I'm excited. It's Monday, which is good. I've been working away this morning. I've been typing up stuff, doing some things. You guys have noticed that I'm not doing the Battle Breakfast this week. It's because I'm trying to finally push a project I've been working on for like a year and a half over the line. I know that's really crappy business talk, but I'm awful at sitting and typing things out. So I've had to give myself a little bit of extra time. I can't fit it into the 2 or 3 hours I have in the afternoon. So anyway, that's why they're not on this week. If you guys are all interested, but yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling positive. I'm feeling motivated. Is how I feel today. Does that make sense? I'm just. But I did walk through town on my way to work, and I saw there was a queue for Zara, which made me laugh.
Hey, people need to get those cheap clothes. There's queues outside Primark all over the UK this morning. Important stuff, right?
Important stuff. So I'm doing really good. I can ask you how you are. I want to say big shout out to Winner Dave, MJ Pegasus, Tristan, who says we're back in action with Owen Jackson. That's definitely a segment now.
Action Jackson, yeah. I'm not sure about that, but yeah, thanks, Tristan.
Hello, Colonel Cabbage. War says, Rob, is there any breakfast battles with the Chaos Ascendant list using the 12 good eye? Yes, they're up on YouTube. You can go watch them back if you're interested. Ange, hello. Welcome to everyone listening to the podcast. Thank you for staying hydrated and being you. And big shout out to everyone else working on Patreon. Couldn't do without you. Big love, War Master. How you doing? Owen, how have you been? That's the real question.
Yeah, I've been good. I'm in the last week. I don't want to make a big thing of it, but I'm in the last week of my 30s. So it's a bit of a funny one at the moment. You know, you have those thoughts about what you've done with your life and what you're doing with your life. But I've come to the arrangement in my mind that everything's cool. I'm happy. So no, I'm good. I had a day's Warhammer on Saturday in the TTS tournament, which was interesting.
So let's talk about. I would like to talk about that, but before we get onto that, turning 40—that's a big deal. Like, that's exciting. How are you celebrating?
I'm just gonna have a lovely day with Anna. She's not gonna work that day, and we're gonna make a big flamboyant picnic and go and sit in the park and drink a bottle of champagne and
day drinking.
Day
drinking is definitely the correct way to do it.
Yeah, I'm not much of a drinker, so I don't know how we'll get home from the park. But yeah, I mean, I was supposed to be putting on, a tournament in London and getting a load of people together, and obviously COVID sort of put the kibosh on that. So yeah, instead doing a little TTS get together with some friends at the weekend, which would be nice. But yeah, I'm not a big celebrator of birthdays. I'm not going to downplay it, but yeah, I don't feel 40, to be honest with you. I don't really know how I feel. I think I sort of arrested it around about 16. Sort of thing. Maybe that's indicative of why I collect and paint fancy miniatures and stuff. But,
no, I feel the same. I think you never feel like an adult. I think that's the science, and you realise that, and it's quite scary because as a kid you're like, oh, look at all these bigger people around me who know the rules, and then as you get older you think no one knows the rules or what's going on. So interesting time. Hey, listen, I'm super happy that you've been alive how long you are, and I hope you live for twice as much as you do now, maybe even longer, 5 times. That's what I want, 5 times longer. You're an angel. So let's talk about Saturday. Also, big love to everyone. Before we do that, let's talk just quickly news. The news. The elves of the mountain paths, the goat wizards of the Lumineth are arriving. They're going on pre-order this weekend, but in a weird fashion. Just the launch box is going on pre-order. Does that mean that we're going to see the Battle Tome on pre-order? Or will that we have this weird contentious issue where only the people that have the new box are going to get the Battle Tome, which is what we've had with the Sisters the Battle Sisters happen. No Epiphany, thanks for subscribing. Also, Diadrin, thanks for subscribing. How do you feel about it, Owen? How do you feel, Twitch chat?
I think it's well overdue. I mean, even just the South London chat and some people, seeing people's comments on Twitter, I think it was almost like getting to the point of, if you don't see something this week, if you don't get a little, carrot dangled, then they're going to go and do something else. I mean, people were talking about, just people who love their elves. There was Gitley was talking about picking up a Daughters of Cain army because he was just sort of bored. You run out of motivation, don't you? And I think motivation at this time is a difficult subject anyway, because we're all struggling with our hobby, perhaps maybe not having the motivation to paint things because there's no tournaments or no games to be played. So I think it's great that they're getting something finally, but it obviously it's the big 40k time at the moment, isn't it? It's the the Necrons and the Golden Boys, or the Smurfs, whatever they are. Yeah, the Ultramarines. Space Marines and Necron. I don't know much about 40k. But yeah, so I think it's really good. And it's nice as well that I think that that box represents the classic aesthetic of the High Elves that people were really waiting for. So people are going to be able to get those paint schemes going and. Yeah, but it is going to be. I don't want it to be another Arch Revenant. We waited. I don't know how long. It's like a year, 9 months for the Arch Rev to be available outside of Loon Curse, and I know that that's an over exaggeration, but I don't want there to be a massive delay between the haves and the have-nots. I'd like people to get their hands on the rules and the battle tome not too long after that box comes out.
I mean, big shout out to all my friends with photographic memories who are going to make sure that the rest of us are able to realise our hopes and dreams by understanding the rules. Also, big shout out to Gitley. Thanks for subscribing. Robbie, feeling happy this week? You seemed a bit down this week. Yeah, no, I wasn't down emotionally, although maybe I was a bit. I was just tired last week. Thanks for checking those. Sorry again. I think the world was a bit shitty and is a bit shitty, right? And having that thrown in your face consistently every day. And I wasn't one of those people who didn't pay attention to it. I went and looked at the information, and it was overwhelming. Some days it's hard not to be a part of that conversation. It's hard not to be also frustrated as well. It's like, what can you do? What can you do? What positive steps? And there are some good guides out there. I'm not going to talk about it like I'm an expert on what to do. Anyway, but this week, motivated is how I am. So thanks for asking very much. Elves, though, Gitley just subscribed, so I imagine he is excited about those elves. No Epiphany says this isn't Games Workshop fault per se as a COVID disruption, but I was proper hyped for the new elves getting into AOS. But the hobby budget is now gone on Necrons. Sad face.
That's the thing. I mean, there's been a lot of people going over to 40k, I've noticed, and I think you get peaks and troughs, don't you? And people, you moving through different systems dependent on what your mates are playing or dependent on what the hotness is. But yeah, I think a lot of people that I recognise from playing at AOS tournaments I mean, Sava was talking about painting Space Marines on Twitter yesterday. Did you see that?
I did. And then I said to him, "Come on, man." He's got way more talent. He should be focusing on, not to say that painting Space Marines you don't have to be talented to do so, because I've seen some outrageously beautiful Space Marines, but the clean aesthetic, like Henry Steele, the guys from Cult of Paint, they made. Yeah. I would say that they are partly responsible for the level of beauty that we generally see in the Horus Heresy hobby. Like, there's a lot of high-end painting, and a lot of it is like battle damage, kind of like ultra realism paint style. A lot of the marine stuff that I generally tend to see, especially coming out of Games Workshop, obviously, is that clean, defined lines, like super neat, and it looks amazing. But there's no battle damage and all that element. And Benjamin's definitely got a style that's a bit more like, I would say, chaos inspired. I mean, I would still like to see some marine stuff with that kind of battle damage and all that other stuff, because I think that looks really rad. But I've never really been a fan of the Marines, when they're super clean, look like toys. I think a bit too much to me, rather than soldiers. Does that make sense? But that's just my personal opinion. I don't want to.
Yes, yeah, no, and I think people do love that sort of straight off the conveyor belt kind of look to them, like this new force come down. But I suppose the same thing could be said in AOS with certain armies. Some people like the you see a Chaos Warrior army, and it's, they might be all resplendent, but then other people would paint that up with, as you say, all the scuffs and marks and the rough style. But I think there's room for them to be painted slightly less sort of. It's an operation in edge highlighting, isn't it? When you paint Marines in the way that Games Workshop represent, that type of model to be painted. It's very box art, super clean. But I think a super battle damaged, narratively at the end of a campaign or something would look awesome. Talking of which, I think it would be remiss. It's Benjamin's birthday today, so I think we should wish him a happy birthday. Mr.
Oh yes, very happy birthday to one of our good friends of the show, Mr. Benjamin Sava. If you guys want to go and have a look at him in what can only be described as the front cover image of like a Vice like article, maybe if it was still around, an American Apparel like front page sort of image. So yeah, go give him some love. He's obviously, go find him on Twitter at Studio Urswood. Smorgan says the GC of the Court model is big hot fire, which I agree with. Also, Space Marines are Blood for the Blood God says Wargaming Dad. Hello. John Phipps says, hi guys, thanks for being such an important part of my daily routine since lockdown. Oh, it's our pleasure. Working from home can be quite lonely, but knowing that every midday I can listen to you guys talk about all things Warhammer really helps. Remember, the Emperor protects, but not as much as fluid resistant masks.
Preach.
Hells yeah, baby. Hells yeah. All right, yeah, I mean, there's lots going on. There's lots more going on. There's lots going on at the minute in the release schedule now, which is exciting. Lumineth, Space Marines. But let's cycle back to what you played. So you played TTS tournament on Saturday, and you have been playing a lot of Tabletop Simulator. And I was going to touch on some of that stuff with you today, if that's okay, because I think you raised a really valuable point on Saturday, or we had to talk about on Sunday. And then you've been playing a lot of Khorne, so I want to hear your thoughts on those. So first off, what were your experiences of playing? What were you playing on Saturday, and how were your experiences?
So I was playing Khorne, and I was playing Archaon in Khorne, which is kind of like a wind-up Archaon build. So riffing off certain things that we've played recently. I think on the stream I've played with, your Marauders and your War Shrine and your Lord, your Karkadrak Lord, all sitting within Khorne to get all those buffs and prayers and stuff. So yeah, I played basically Archaon, 40 Marauders, and then I had another 2 units of 20 Marauders, double War Shrine, Bloodsecrator, Bloodstoker. So it's kind of a TTS sort of build. I mean, I would love to play it in real life as well, but essentially you've got double War Shrine, so you can get in Khorne, you can get Archaon on a 1-up save. So often I was getting him on a 1-up save, re-rolling hits and wounds at +3 to charge. So and then he goes twice because it's Reapers of Vengeance, because he's a Khorne demon, so you can spend a CP at the start of the combat phase and he double activates once after another. So it's great fun. It's TTS build basically. But yeah, you've got all the overlapping buffs, and the one trick with it as well is that if you want to double activate Archaon, then you might leave your 40 Marauders gonna get punked by something, so you use his command ability so they fight on death. So basically just, he's going twice, all the Marauders are fighting on death, perhaps supported by the banner. It's a great combat army. The unfortunate thing, or not unfortunate, but a thing which happens in TTS, and I think it will be happening when we all get back to playing games in real life, is like the shooting meta is here. I think I said to you I was a bit salty at the weekend, and I was a bit not upset. I don't know. I probably take it too seriously, but yeah, it was just like people have talked about the need for a shooting meta when like Slanesh were at the height of their powers, and like the shooting meta's here, and it's a bit crap for if you don't have the tools to deal with it. You could say, get good or bring the tools, but I don't really want to just to all look at each other and shoot at each other from opposite sides of the table.
But you're still interested in playing 40k?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think this is really valuable, a discussion, if you don't mind having it, because I don't think anything that you said to me when we had a discussion about it the other day was in any way negative. I think it was just, I think a lot of people don't want to hear certain things sometimes, and I think it's valuable to have that conversation. And I also think I've seen a lot of disingenuous posts online about like power levels of certain things. Someone, I think it was Boring Man Channel the other day, came up with, I think, a great segment that I will do in the future, just called the honest Wargamer review. Like, so when 40k comes out, I'm just going to be like 40k honest review, and I'll be like, okay, so, like, new person, welcome to the hobby. Some stuff is shit, yeah, and some stuff is too good. I just had on the background before the show, I watched a pretty famous Magic the Gathering YouTuber who's just jumped into 40k. And he was just like, so I've wanted to diversify and do something new. And I was like, that sounds really interesting. He goes, and Magic the Gathering's had a really hard time at the moment. There's definitely power creep, and there's some mechanics which are just really uninteractive and not fun. So I thought I'd try something new and jump into 40k, and I was like, oh dear God, no. I was like, fucking hold on to your seat, sunshine. You're in for a ride.
But yeah, it's. I want to stay away from talking about specific factions because people do, like, I got into some conversations the weekend on Twitter, and when you sort of label this army is bad or this army is shit or I don't want to play this army, then that army might be something that somebody's been building and painting for the last 6 months and they love it, or they've been waiting years for the new book, and then it comes out and it's not their fault that there are elements of that book that then tarnish the whole rest of the book. But TTS as a whole, looking at the lists from the weekend, like 80% of them had some form of teleport and then ranged threat, or some form of, for example, in the form of your I don't know, Deepkin, some form of very powerful combat unit and the ability to put it where it needs to be with relative ease. Those are the things that make playing an army like Khorne, or an army which doesn't have the range or doesn't have a lot of anvils to soak up all the damage that certain units can put out. It's also disingenuous. Like, so coming up against the gun line, like, I think you think, especially if you're not you haven't played a lot of games. Like, and I remember in my very early days, I was like, okay, I'm against a gun line, so I just run really fast, hope I survive that first round of shooting, I get into them, right? That's my plan, right? But the assumption there is that I can get into them round 2. Yeah, I just have to take a turn worth of damage and survive enough to go through. But problematically, a lot of the gun lines that we're looking at, or that we're going to talk about, are ungettable turn 2, because there are screens in the way, or because they're so far back, or whatever it might be. Yeah, or they can just, they can take that hit, and then you can just teleport those key units to other places and hit you. And it is disingenuous to suggest that there's a way to play better against that. Because I could just go get TTS open now for you and just show you time and again how your argument that you could do that is wrong. Now, there are other builds or specific armies, specifically like Death Deepkin, who deploy most of their stuff off the board and have the ability to deep strike, move an incredible distance, and also engaging you in multiple places all at once. So, I mean, they have a very unique setup, but they are also arguably a purely bullshit army which sucks to play against. Like, they're not fun. Turn 3, every bit of them always strikes first. They're incredibly unengaging. Like, you have to be you have to be pretty shitty to just go worse than 3 and 2 with a pure eel army, because they're just good. yeah. It's the movement that's getting Deepkin, keeping them at the top there, and they're a natural counter to a lot of these shooting armies because of that having to shoot the closest unit interaction, isn't it? And you can play around that. But yeah, I think unless you've got unless you've got debuffs to hit, perhaps some ethereal to counter some of the high rend shooting, for example, like your buffed flamers, your buffed iron drakes coming over on a bridge, your salamanders. I'm going to say it, salamanders.
They're just at least per salamander. They're at least 40 points too cheap, if not 60. And if anyone wants to run the numbers on that, I could show you. The comparable units for their output, it's just phenomenal. Ignoring, and you can't put them in context of their book without so you can't just isolate and just give them points and not realize that you could also just teleport them or reduce all their damage by 1. Like some of the buffs inherently that they can get, ignoring that you have to pay for them, and teleport you don't have to pay for them.
You're getting me. You're gonna get me
hold
started.
on, no, I'm not. I'm not. But what I think I can do is I can identify what I think is good shooting. Yeah, like that where I've seen shooting that I think is actually genuinely good. I, for one, am a massive fan of the Oceot Bone Reaper catapults. Yeah.
Yes.
Now I think they're good, but not too good. They're like right on the line. You know, like they're at that perfect points level where it's like, am I going to take a Gothazar Harvester? Am I going to take a Crawler? Yeah. And you're like, okay, I've got they've got really good range, excellent. Yeah, but you don't have lots of bodies in front of them to screen them. So once you start playing into the midfield, anything that can teleport and lock them up is in a pretty good spot. Like if you've watched any good games of them being played, there was an excellent game of them being played at Sheffield Slaughter between Tony and JP, not Gannis, JP Stevens. And that was a really exciting game because those crawlers were doing really positive work, but he was having to screen with his characters mean at the back. So like it's like initially you looked at it and you think, and if you've ever been on the end of those crawlers, you're like, fuck, those crawlers suck. Yeah, right. But also they don't suck because they don't win every tournament. They don't go super well. And you know, I don't know what you think, Twitch chat and Owen. I think that's shooting done well. I think they wrote those scrolls well, in my opinion.
Yes, there are downsides to the crawlers because in certain matchups they do nothing. Like I've played with them often enough. I still think there are feels bad though, and I don't know.
Oh, do you?
Think it. Yeah, I do, and I think it. I don't know. Maybe on TTS I'm too interested in my opponent out enjoying the game as well, or maybe in gaming in general. I don't really know, but I just think whether it be like I've played triple crawler once and it was crap for my opponent. We played a hero mission and I just shot all 3 of his heroes off the board on turn 1 and that was the game. I don't know if people know that this stuff is egregious and it's crap for your opponent to be facing it, but whether that will stop people playing when we're in a competitive, or you taking those units when we're in a competitive format, I don't know.
I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think we could talk about this time and again actually, like because at this moment it's salamanders, you know, but at one point it was triple keepers with their with their ridiculous win rate. Now, if you own the army, understand that the conversation about the army is never about you as a person, nor the fact that you want to do the thing shouldn't be. The game design should always be better. But being aware of it, identifying it and understanding it is such a healthy conversation. It's just such a healthy conversation. It's just like, why wouldn't you want to have that conversation? Yeah, like if someone's like, oh, do you want to play a game of whatever, of Age of Sigmar? Someone's like, yeah, I'm going to bring 12 salamanders. You'd be like, cool, I don't want to play you. They'd be like, why? I'm like, because it sucks. Like, it just sucks. I don't have the tools to deal with it. I already know that going into the game, I don't want to play. Yeah, they're like, well, that seems unfair. It's like, it's not unfair. It's not my fault that it's unengaging. Like, so that, you know, you pick, to quote my friend Joe Purcell, it's your hobby. You haven't got to play the games if you don't want to play the games. Like, it's really easy.
I just find, like, if you took it as an analogy, and I love analogizing, if that's a word, but it's a bit like turning up to meet your friend and them saying, it's been ages since we've had a nice chat, let's have a chat, and all they do is talk at you the whole 3 hours. You don't actually get to say many words, and that's a bit like what playing against these oppressive shooting armies is like. Fundamentally, you're constantly reacting or trying to counter the threats that they're putting in your face. You're never able to actually have any way of playing your own game. I mean, I was laughing with somebody, I think I messaged you. It's like turning into the age of screening, not the age of Sigmar. You know, literally, if you look at Mark Brooks's game against Obeid, every single one of Mark's movements during his movement phase was factoring in the no CP, I'm going to put an offensive unit wherever I want if you misstep at any point. So it's like, I just find that you're constantly just having to play their game, and I would like it to, and that feels uninteractive, you know, if it's a one-way conversation.
And I think interactivity has always been a key element of wargaming to make it more interesting and fun. And also, if you're the guys out there pushing salamanders forward and kicking ass, then great job. Like, you know, you're having a great time, and that's fun. I'm sure you don't mind when you pile in twice with Archeon.
Exactly.
You don't. But the problem is I think that Archeon's mitigate. Like, you can mitigate Archeon. I think you can't quite ignore him. But you can, and he flies and he does a whole bunch of other stuff. He can pile in a lot, but he's a big significant points value. And also, if you just bring enough salamanders, you could just shoot him off the board on a turn. So that's fine.
That's exactly what happened game 3. It was my fault, but basically he was able to bring down 4 units of 3 salamanders, that's 1,000 points, right? That's 1,000 points. Is it the 4 units of 4? Whatever it was a lot, and they all he had 9 CP, so he put reroll 1s on all of them. And some of them had other buffs to give them hitting on 2s, and they just, without having to charge, they took Archeon off in one shooting phase.
Yeah, and I think, and I'd like to touch on this, unpack this a little bit more as well. Gitley says this is exactly how I feel. I've decided not to play against these oppressive shooting armies. This is unfortunately bad for both players. People are welcome to bring what they want, but I'm also entitled not to play the game. A mate turned up, says Smorgon with Seraphon at the weekend, and no one would play him. So AOS Archie says Warhammer could be a bit rock paper scissors, as some matchups aren't going to be great, but that has been identifiably untrue. As we've seen sometimes at events, Vanguard Wing, Sanesh, Daughters of Cain, where it wasn't rock, paper, scissors, it was someone had dynamite in that mix-up, and everyone else had rock, paper, scissors. Right now, this isn't a conversation. This isn't a conversation about balance, nor is this conversation about the moronic conversation of if you go into a tournament, don't be a dick and take shitty things. No, if you go into a tournament, 100% the most egregious list you can take. Yeah. Yep. What this conversation about is understanding what is egregious and what you could potentially do about it, and also not to listen to people that tell you that getting good is a way to deal with it. I have been writing lists for a while, and I've seen some of those Salamander games, and I think that they've been played okay at best. Yeah, those army lists are awful. I might run them next week on TTS if I can find 5 people that will just let me just kick the fuck out of them for 5 days in a row. Yeah, right.
I'm out already, man.
And then I'll message Benjamin. I'll be like, bring your Ideneth, baby. Yeah, let's see. That's the one tough matchup. So that's not really rock papers, is it? It's do you have the fish? But it's important. It's important to have that conversation, because then everyone goes, do you know what? I feel okay about feeling okay, and it's never your opponent's fault. Just have that conversation with them. Where it gets difficult is when people try to obfuscate it and be like, no, this isn't bad, it's not going to hurt you. You're like, okay, dickhead, that's a shitty argument, right? Because all the evidence goes the other way, right?
Yes. I'm too much of a diplomat. I don't want to get into that too much, but I think people obviously are always looking after their own interests to a certain degree. So if you collect the army, it's quite hard if people are down on it all the time.
That's the worst bit. I love Seraphon. I love it. I'm like, whatever, man. Listen, they're kicking your ass. Lol. I love them. I'm just whatever. Just kick ass.
I just don't know why they always have to make the worst looking models the best, man. I mean, you look at Lotan, he's fucking awful, but his model's beautiful. You look at Namati Reavers, those are beautiful models, but you never see them. Salamanders, they look like a children's little dinosaur toy.
Not mine. Mine are from Mace Miniatures, and they look amazing. And I have 12 painted. To give you some indication that this guy who hates painting has 12 already fully painted on the shelf ready. Yes, or Marauders. Thank you. Marauders are also the same. Marauders are also one of the ugliest looking models in the game, and they're brilliant. Anyway, good conversation to have. It's good conversation. It's a good conversation to have with your friends. It's a good conversation to have. If you find someone being disingenuous, you should definitely challenge them on that in a constructive way. And you should say, I don't understand your point. Use words and evidence to give me your version of why they're not this thing. Yeah, and then always compare and contrast. Like, so find something that can teleport and then see, is it as good as a salamander? And you'll be like, no, the answer is 0% chance. Same with flamers, Owen. In fact, actually, one of the good matchups, I think, against Seraphon is the demon Zinch list, where you've got some Ungol Raiders or you've got some Untamed Beasts, so they can screen first turn. So that first turn drop doesn't stress me out at all. Like, you know, you could be whatever star host you want, and you could be like, I'm going to teleport salamanders. I'm like, you're going to do it plus 6 inches away from me. Yeah, so now your 12-inch range is never getting me, and I can hit you with my midfield shooting better than your midfield shooting. Problem is they could just wait a turn and do it on the turn after. So it's like...
And also, if like the 3 things we've talked about to maybe counter these kind of things are fighting fire with fire. So, like, we've talked about flamers and we've talked about crawlers. So why don't we just all fuck off and play 40k if we want to shoot at each other? Fight me! Come and fight me! That's what I was saying all weekend was, just come and fight me, man! I just want to fight you. But then I suppose I want to fight them because I've got the most devastating combat thing. So
in a game,
and
we did have this conversation in a game where there's only good combat, like we had with Sinesh, or the best combat. You don't really have options to do it. But I think I'd like to try and unpack it at some point and work hard on it. Anyway, non-engaging games are never fun. But I think one of the other things is, obviously you've been playing Khorne, which obviously I've been cussing out forever as being a terrible book, but you don't seem to think so. And talk to me about your journey with Khorne and how it's been going and what you've been enjoying.
So, Khorne started, obviously last year, I played loads of Sylvaneth, and I just kind of, that sort of book ran its course for me. And thankfully I've got a couple of mates. I should give a shout out very quickly to Lee, Ben and John Gitley. So that's Undead Ben, Gitley and my mate Lee. They... Playing against them and playing against their sort of bloodthirster builds just got me really excited about Khorne. So Lee lent me a Khorne army for about 6 months, and that sort of tided me through a few tournaments and things. And yeah, it's funny. I was thinking this morning, and I was talking about how I love analogies, but like you look at Khorne. And you think of it as like, from the outside, I was like, it's like a heavy metal army. It's like bloodthirsters and like skulls and blood and raw, and like that's cool. And I'm not into heavy metal as such, but when you pull the album out of the sleeve and you look at it, it's actually more like Pink Floyd. It's not heavy metal. It's like intricate, layered. Like it's got so many different ways to play it, and it's like a proper finesse techie army. Like Khorne can 5-0, maybe not in this pure shooting meta, but Khorne can 5-0. But you have to just play your socks off to do it. So yeah, that would be my 40,000 foot view, is that it's like you never judge a book by its cover, and Khorne look like you just want to, and there's lazy things like what James says, just walk them forward into the middle of the board and then get smashed.
James does say that.
Yeah. And I have played games like that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, as an overall of Khorne, like I think that the Blood Tithe mechanic, so for people who don't know, the Blood Tithe mechanic, it's part of the allegiance abilities. Any unit on the board that dies, even if they flee from battle shock, you get a Blood Tithe point, and that is a resource which you can use for summoning at the end of your movement phase, or you can use for abilities, and that's at the start of the hero phase in bunny ears, and that's by either your hero phase or your opponent's hero phase. So the Blood Tithe all has to be spent at one time. It's not like you can pick and choose and you have 8 and you use 4 and it leaves you 4. You have to use it all in, which I think is quite narrative. But yeah, the summoning, you can summon Khorne demons. So everything you can summon onto the board has a 5-up save. So it's quite squishy, apart from the Bloodthirsters, which have a 4-up save.
Hold on, sorry, can I just say thank you to Crazy Horse Anthony for donating 1,500 bits to the show. He says, don't ruin Seraphon away at the tables. I think let me just quick TLDR. I don't want to interrupt you, Owen.
No, cool.
You change the points on Croak, you change the points on Salamanders, and you maybe have a quick look. In fact, actually, so far, like I'll give you another one very quickly. Gaunt Summoner can only summon 10 blue horrors, not 10 pinks. These are not huge changes. Yeah, I'm saying salamanders, stick 40 to 60 points on each salamander and put them up. You've still got Razordons, you've still got Skinks, you've still got you've got so many fucking options in that book. So, I'm not saying throw the whole fucking book into the sea. I'm just saying, very much like we said, like week 2 of Slanesh, we were like, just change the locus so it's like a something else. Yeah, like that's it, right? Real simple change, not much. Nerf Legion of Chaos Ascendant horror summoning too. Yes, make it so you can only summon blue horrors, not pink horrors. I'm cool with that too. It's not very difficult changes. Nothing like that's going to ruin the book. The points increase on 2 models is not. If your book is like, if I just said 50 points on each eel, yeah, that does ruin an entire faction.
You did actually say that as well, didn't you, Rob? You did say that. That was your feedback.
I will always say that. So sorry, Owen. You please carry on.
No. So yeah, essentially, it's a finesse army. You might think of it as a smashy bashy run up and kill stuff army, but you're always using that resource. So there's the thing when you play Khorne that anything dies on the board, even if it's your own general. You're like, sweet, blood tithe. It's like a silver. There's always a silver lining with Khorne because you get your cheeky blood tithe. But yeah, the way in which you can use that is you can convert 1 into a command point. You can convert 2. You can auto unbind a spell anywhere on the board, which is so strong in the current meta. I've used that all the time. 3 allows you to move a unit. So, for example, you can move Archaon 14 inches in the hero phase, and then 4 allows you to fight. So, you get amazing scenarios whereby you might have luckily double turned your opponent. There's loads of carnage, loads of blood tithe, and then they've waited an hour maybe or 45 minutes to get their turn, and then you just spend your blood tithe and fight again in the hero phase. So,
I mean, that's the one to me that seems like what I really like about what your journey has been on. Undead Ben, if you're watching, I'm sorry about this for what I'm about to say. But what I've really enjoyed about your journey is you've moved away from that almost seen as necessary bloodthirsters. Yeah, and then you've gone into Mortal Khorne are not good. And then it have been really showing the force of what that can bring to the tabletop. And that blood tithe mechanic, as we saw not this year at CanCon, the year before, where it was the blood tithe mechanic that won CanCon that year. Really, it was the use of that blood tithe to do stuff out of sequence, which was because when I played against you in one of the games, you put some units in front of me. You were like, that I needed to kill, to clear, to charge, but if I did that, I allowed you bonuses in the next turn. So it's a super and you had to explain it to me. I had to be like, tell me what happens if I kill this stuff, which slowed the game down. But if I didn't ask that stuff, I hadn't been aware at least, you'd just been like, cool, I'm on 4 blood tithe points now. You're fucked, right? So it was so interesting. And you're kind of converting me. But anyway, sorry, I don't want to.
No, you're right. No, that's right. In terms of when you play against players and they're always factoring in the resources that they're giving you by the way the rules work, it makes for really interesting games because you're like, oh, I won't deal with that unit and I won't capture that point perhaps for a turn, but I'm happy to sacrifice that so you can't just activate in my next hero phase. Or when you start having, and I think this goes back to what we were talking about before about non-interactivity, it creates excellent interactivity between the two players because you're constantly looking at how your units, your opponent's units can be a resource to you. So for example, at the weekend I managed to get Archaon in and he activated and killed 3 units in one go, which gave me my secondary, and then also straight away I was like, great, 3 blood tithe. If I win the priority, then I can do this, and if I don't. Asking my Khorne friends about what they would change, there was a couple of references made to the fact that they wished that the blood tithe didn't all get used up. So if you need that clutch unbind and you're sat on 8, you just have to use all 8, even though the resource only costs 2. I think that breaks from the narrative a bit, but from a purely gaming point of view, I think it would be a huge change. Do you think
that they need it?
I don't know. I think it makes things a little bit easier. For example, say you were sat on 6 and you wanted to make a nice move, it would allow for even more intricate gameplay, because you could move perhaps in your hero phase with the 3, and then it leaves you on 3. Move in the hero phase, move in the movement phase, and then summon again. So with a fast unit, you could end up summoning across the board by combining the move element of the Blood Tithe along with the summoning element. But normally you're never, unless you've got lots of Slaughter Priests who are going to be boosting out lots of mortal wounds, if you spend your Blood Tithe at the start of the hero phase, it often means you don't have much resource for the end of the movement phase to summon. So you're constantly having to make sacrifices. And it does make for a really interesting game. And I think you get really good at the game. I think it makes you a better player by playing an army such as this.
Well, so Hooker Pid says in the chat, and also big love to Get to the Chopper here. Speckles is in the chat now. Big love to Speckles. Clap, clap for being in the NHS. Well done. Can I just say how amazing it is to see not only me, who's not had a haircut throughout but lockdown, but Owens has got some cracking hair. Yeah, yeah.
I'm getting proper feral. Like, this is good. This is good. I've done a little bit of, arranging, but yeah, it's pretty wild. When are the hairdressers going to open? Please. I'm not for human consumption right now.
So Get to the Chopper is saying, obviously, Blood Tithe is a super fun mechanic, but Hook and Pin asked a really great question. Also, big love to you, Hook and Pin. Would you say Blades are a good beginner army and good for seasoned player, making it a great all-rounder book? Like, would you say it's a good beginner army? Because I don't think that's the case at all.
It depends what the criteria is. I think if you were picking up a Khorne army now and then going and playing with the sorts of armies that are around, I think it might be quite demotivating, because I think you'd lose quite a lot. I mean, the sort of Khorne army whereby you were riffing off what's available in sort of starter boxes and start collecting, it would be a mix of mortals and demons, which there's anti-synergy there. In the past, you used to be able to mix demons and mortals a lot easier. Now you sort of have to go down one route or another. It's definitely rewarding as a sort of second army or a third army, where you understand more about the game and you're not so concerned about your stuff potentially dying if there's trades to be made. But from a modeling point of view, like if you wanted like a starter person, who wanted some Reavers and a couple of heroes and a Bloodthirster, it is a really fun way to play the game. I just think you take a kicking a lot of the time, and then every now and again your Bloodthirster of insensate rage would go mental and blow up their army, and it would feel amazing. So I don't know if I answered the question, but
it's some good stuff. I personally, looking at it for me, I don't think it's a starter army at all. I think I don't think it's easy to pick up either. Like there's so if you're it's slow. It's slow. There's a lot of holy withins. There's a lot of this does this does this. Even your deployment, you could just mess up your entire game plan. Whereas easy starter armies are Stonehorns. Yeah, those are easy starter armies. And then I would go from Stonehorns and I would say a tier above that is Flesh-Eater Courts. That's actually even a little that's a bit more there's a bit more to learn. But I'd drop straight down to Stonehorns as being easy. And I think exactly what you say, Owen, the concept of the environment that you're in is really important for also whether or not an army is easy to start. Those Stonehorns are sometimes just going to get a unit of flamers dropped in front of them and then blammoed, but that's going to be harder to do than they're not easy to drop. Those Frostlords on Stonehorns, they're not easy to drop. So you can make mistakes and run around. There's not tons of holy withins. I think that's a good starter army. I don't think Khorne is. I think Khorne is actually up there with one of the more complicated armies to play. I'd argue.
I think that the real power comes when you start to create lots of synergies between the priests and the units, and then there's lots of auras, as you say, lots of holy withins with your Bloodsecrator banners, and then aspiring Deathbringers. I mean, I wrote down, as a whole, that's what they can do. It's very anti-magic, which is really strong in the meta. When you've got people like Croak and your Lord of Change around and Nagash, the Hexgorger Skulls and the Bloodsecrator banner and the altar, and obviously plenty of unbinds and some really good artifacts and traits. There's plenty of anti-magic. So if you're in a heavy magic meta, You can have a lot of fun dropping things down and blowing stuff up, or making your opponent blow themselves up with skulls. I think looking at the slaughter hosts that are available, obviously it is a mix of demons and mortals, and there are some additions from Wrath of the Everchosen. But I think really, if you were looking at where to go with Khorne, if you wanted to go demons or have a heavy demon flavor, then it really is the Reapers of Vengeance and the new Baleful Lords. I think somebody came third on Saturday in Poland with Baleful Lords, which I know with an Exalted, actually. Rob, somebody got an Exalted to work. So yeah, those two are the demons, and then Goretide has a bit of play for mortals, but you can obviously just go without any host. So those would be the three that I would encourage people to look into as a structure for their armies. Reapers of Vengeance essentially allows you to do the double activation, like I mentioned with Archaon, but that's basically any Khorne demon can go twice. And Baleful Lords allows your Bloodthirsters to run and charge, which is amazing. So often people are tying that in with a Tyrants of Blood battalion. So you got your 3 Bloodthirsters. But it's a lot of points and they're squishy. You just have to be prepared for them to potentially die without doing their thing. Which is really sad.
Surely you're invested in them doing their thing. That's why you exist. I honestly think it's fascinating that Khorne is not a simple army to play. I know I'm not trying to be rude to Khorne. I think it's a bonus, truthfully, that actually later on you've got more counterplay and you can do more things. And also a lot of the stuff that's I feel like, especially Marauders. I talked the other day about how good Marauders were, obviously, but Marauders being something you could paint up, stick in your Khorne army, then just transfer straight away and be your Slaves to Darkness army. How do you feel about Slaves to Darkness armies, but with Mark of Khorne? You're not feeling that, or is that a thing?
I looked at that and I think that perhaps you trade off between Blood Tithe, which I think is more, you either have Blood Tithe or you have magic and a teleport, and access to things like Be'lakor, or you make Be'lakor better in a Slaves to Darkness army. I do think that Slaves to Darkness units in Khorne work better because there's a lot of stuff which buffs mortal keyword Khorne. So you've got your small heroes who are Khorne heroes who give excellent buffs. So I've played quite a bit with Chaos Knights and a Bloodstoker. So Chaos Knights and a Bloodstoker, if you put the Talisman of Burning Blood on your Bloodstoker, which is an artifact of Holy Within 12 +1 charge, they've got +1 charge on the Chaos Knight War Scroll, and at the start of the movement phase, Bloodstoker whips the 10 knights and it gives them another +3, so they're at +5 to charge, re-rolling wounds. So yeah, bringing the slaves units into the Khorne book, I think at the moment is the way that I would port them into the Khorne book, rather than bringing Khorne heroes into Slaves to Darkness. I mean, the slaves demon prince is amazing, but I think that's a very specific play style if you want to run.
But you can also put that Slaves Demon Prince into the Khorne book, right?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah. I think
he's got if you guys don't know what we're talking about, he's got an amazing ability, which I talked about when I did the book review. I was like banging on about it, where it makes all units within 18 inches, which is just a ridiculous range, half their move and charge roll. It's just dumb. I mean, it was overlooked because people were talking about the Nurgle one, which obviously got nerfed, but the Khorne one is still brilliant. I mean, it's still quite a lot of points. I think it's 220 for that Demon Prince, but it's still rad. Like, it's still just it's strong, mixed with Be'lakor, so strong. Just shut down whole armies. Just
that's a negative play experience.
That is a negative play experience. And also, can I talk about the fact it makes no narrative sense? What's the science behind it? I'm stood there as a Khorne Demon Prince with an axe and a sword, and then I'm just eyeballing someone's like, oh, I won't charge that guy. Is that the story? They're scary, but not as scary, but scarier than a Bloodthirster. That's what we're saying.
I think the story is. Hold on. Should we have a little bit of narrative? I
Yeah,
can tell you
please,
exactly.
because I think I need some justification. I really
I know.
do.
I know it's called Blood Slick Ground, so I get the feeling that it's a bit like maybe like a cartoon where somebody throws down a load of marbles or banana skins, and people just literally. It's not the fact that they don't want to come and fight; it's just they can't because they keep falling over. I always think that the Demon Prince looks like he's doing the V's as well.
He's the worst Demon Prince. Like, they definitely, if ever a model in both ranges, HDMI and 40k needs an update, it's that Demon Prince. It's pretty woeful.
They're pretty old school. Oh, here we go. So it's called Blood Slick Ground. The Demon Prince summons pools of thick gore around itself to hinder the movement of its enemies.
Okay, so the ground is slick. Question, great one from Grinaldi. Does the ability affect all units, even if they fly?
Ooh, that's a great unit. Yeah, I think so. So maybe the blood's kind of like rising up and entangling them.
Blood slicked air? Is this what they're...
we're stretching it here, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Well, maybe the ground becomes slick with blood because of a cloud of, like, it rains blood around them.
Yeah. Like a rather than here we go. God, we got there in the end. Rather than it being Prince Purple Rain, it's Demon Prince Red Rain. Wow, we did that live.
Love Prince.
You can use this
Love
command
Prince.
ability in your hero phase if this model has the Khorne keyword. If you do so until your next hero phase, run and charge rolls. Yeah, there's no fly keyword, doesn't get around it. So yeah, it's literally just like a shower of blood, and then it's all pooling on the floor. But a thing to know as well, it's not wholly within 18. It's within 18. So then you factor in his base size, and you're talking about like a 40-inch aura.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. That's
and
pretty
you can
wild.
Put him in Khorne, give him the Crimson Crown, and then he can do that every turn, and it doesn't cost a CP. So he's just got it on the whole time.
Oh my god. Yeah, I like that. No, I'm into that. I'm into that in a big way. Okay, great. Right, well, we're reaching towards. If you got anything else you think you need to mention about Khorne, if not, I'd like to take some questions. Oh, what is it?
Sorry,
no, you don't have to be quick. It's just.
So essentially, I just did a quick pros and cons. Essentially,
oh, good.
I did it. I mean, this was literally off the top of my head this morning. So I think if you're looking at the army, then the pros would be you're looking at a pure combat monster army. I don't mean monster as in the keyword. I just think it's a combat monster army. If you can deliver those assets into your opponent's army, you're going to have a good time. They've got speed. They've got fly. They've got an abundance of hammers. They've got bodies, cheap bodies in Marauders and Reavers and some of the demons. They've got summoning. They've got mortal wound output. And they've got plenty of anti-magic. Where they fall down is too many demon saves, too many 5-ups. I think you've got access to I think there's 2 or 3 units with the 3-up save, maybe 4 units with a 3-up save, but nothing beyond that. There's no anvils. There's no reach apart from skull cannons, but whatever.
You're not taking them?
No, not taking them. There's no DPR outside of the shrines giving the slaves to darkness. That's why I've brought the slaves in, because you've got your war shrine saves, you've got your mortal wound shield saves on your knights and your lord on Karkadrak. So apart from that, and then I don't really build for it, but you don't. I think common wisdom is that it needs to be low drop, because you want to give away that first turn and then smash them up on a double. That's why you often see your 4 or 5 drop tyrants of blood, gore pilgrims kind of list. But yeah, I think that's it really. And getting doubled if you play Khorne can often be GG. It's very susceptible to the double because everything's so fragile. Yeah.
Apart from those skull crushers, they can be pretty tricky if you want to go that way. But like again, I think it's so specific and you lose lots, and it's such an interesting book when you actually deep dive it. Mainly because most of the units are almost there but not quite there. Do you know what I mean? So you're like I could take that kind of. But then, weirdly, they have almost no output. How weird is that? So, like, it's a strange book. But I've really enjoyed watching your journey with it, and I have come to appreciate that it is a book that can be played well, as opposed to a book that is good and can be played badly, which is like a lot of those, not a lot of those books, but some books I do see, which I think is a thing. A bit like the ogre book. So I played that obviously for a week the other week, and that's a book that you can play well enough, and you can play badly, but it just doesn't have the tools like inside of it. And if you're an ogre player, I'm not trying to be critical, and maybe I'm tons wrong, but I think you could run some Stonehorns around very much and have a good time. But lots of it's like, isn't going to see play and shouldn't really see play because it's not there, which is but it's almost there. Like I was like playing with the lead belchers, and I was like, oh, this is kind of good, but it's not great, but it's kind of good. Like I'm okay with it. Go on.
But I like kind of good though. I don't know if it's personality or whatever, but I find it incredibly rewarding playing with Khorne and getting wins with Khorne. It's like you have to there are always sacrifices to be made, and there are always trades, and there are always decisions, and there are always dice. And I think that's where perhaps some of the feel bads have come from other games, is that you sort of sometimes feel against other armies that they're not having to make those decisions. Their army just does the thing. So perhaps I think a DPR and a better save on some of the big boys to make them stick around a bit longer would be helpful. But I think it's an incredibly rewarding book to play, and that's what I've found. And I've moved a bit away from the demons into the mortals, and it's like a amazing playground with the slaves book and the Khorne book. When you mash all that together and all these synergies and overlapping, you can get some wicked games and wicked things happening. But yeah. Also,
okay.
Korgoraths.
What,
John
8 individual ones only?
Yeah, I would be remiss if I didn't give Gitley's shout out. I think he's beaten some good players with 8 Korgoraths. I won't say any names, but yeah, he turned up as a spare player and went 3-0 at a one-dayer down at Bad Moon with corgis and pulled a lot of people's pants down. And there is actually a slaughter host which is specifically based around Korgoraths, but I think,
it's very unique. It's very unique.
It's not the one, but it's a lot of fun.
But it is fun. Yeah, absolutely. And I was as someone who owns Big Papa Korgorath, I wish Korgoraths were better, but Korgoraths are not better, and that is a thing.
That's your hot take, is it?
Yeah. Warshrine not working on Orkhorn Mortals was a huge blow. Which is that is, and it's weird. Thank you, John Arthur Christian Kittle, by the way. They have a 5-1 competitive record. Gitley, I believe you, Bubby. I'm sorry. Korgoraths are the one. I've changed it up. That's what I'll do. That's what I'll say. Right. So, Owen, before we head out, unless anyone's got any questions, you got any shout outs you want to give right now?
I'll give a shout out to South London Legion chat. Those guys, we've all been keeping each other going during the whatever this period of time is. Actually, that's something.
Can I quickly talk to you about this real quick? I'm sorry to
Mate,
finish your point.
I've got nowhere better to.
No. So real quick, like one of the other things that has been talked about a lot is obviously the TTS meta. I saw some absolutely shit hot take that because it's a computer game, none of it's realistic, like, or no one will take 18 salamanders. I'm like, are you fucking out of your tree? Like, yes, they will. Like, if they think that they can go away to an event, they're going to buy it. So, like, grow up. Terrible take. Like, the TTS meta, but most importantly, the TTS gaming environment has allowed you to get better and have some knowledge with Khorne, which I think is excellent. I've been enjoying it. So I think it's been. I feel like when gaming starts again, I know where we're at. Does that make sense? I know where the game's at, and I think it's super weird that people are commentating without being part of that process over the past 3 months or so. I talked to Bill Souza over from America, who he's been running that Legion of Chaos Ascendant. He's been playing it in some TTS tournaments over in America. I know the Aussies have been playing as well. I know people are playing, all the Irish are playing now. We're all in, we're all playing, and it's it's rocking up. Loads of the Europeans are playing as well. So we've been slowly developing as a group, and obviously we all want to play on the tabletop way more than we want to play on TTS. But the game's alive.
Yeah.
And God. And how do you feel about all that?
I feel that knowledge is power, right? So if people are out there playing these new books or playing interesting stuff, it doesn't matter what the format is. I mean, a 6x4 table is a 6x4 table, whether it be shrunken down and to scale, but on a screen, or you're playing in front of it. I think all the people that I'm playing with are, they know their rules. There's lots of innovation going on. I think to discount it as not being sort of valid information or not being valid games is wrong. I mean, you look at the results. People like Darren Watson, Philip Cartier, who's an excellent Russian player, Matthew Goldsborough, obviously Benjamin came in and won the one tournament. The players that are winning on the TTS are the same players who do very well in tournaments physically. So that means there's nothing wrong with the format, and the format is representative of player skill and it's representative of army power. So I don't really see where that argument's coming from. I think perhaps you maybe have a negative attitude towards something that you're not involved in for one reason or another. I think that might be psychologically where it's coming from. But yeah, I've made loads of mates and played loads of really good players from all around the world from the 4 TTS tournaments I've played. So yeah, I'm a big advocate anyway, right? And I think
I think playing. I'm a big advocate for playing. We went through a conversation on Saturday during the 40k reveal. We took Tom and Nick and John, who are all avid gamers. They're serious gamers, but they're also really fun people. And their consistent theme is play the game to get better at the game. A consistent theme that we talked about on that show was like where we get our information on and how we learn things. It was play the game to get good at the game, like understand what's happening. And I know that that's really challenging for some people in the world. Maybe you're listening on your phone, you don't have a computer, whatever it might be. So I recognise that maybe you don't have time, maybe you're working your balls off because you lost your job. Like all those things. Number one, we love you and I hope you're okay. Number two, like I get it, but I think it was just a shitty hot take that I wanted to 100% like wreck. Do you know what I mean? I just want to make sure that gets ragged on left, right, and centre. Because
I think you've achieved that in that case, then, Rob. You've done
good.
It.
Well, I was like, who's saying that, idiot? Right, right. Oh, loving today. Let's go Mondays. It's because you've been talking Khorne. I'm all fired up. Let's go.
Mate, they are the one. They are the one.
They are not the one, though. They're not the one. Owen, it's been a pleasure talking to you. It really has.
Oh,
really has.
Yeah, what a great way to start your week, eh? I've really enjoyed the chat too. I hope people got some information and it wasn't just me being a big fanboy.
I think it was genuinely. I think it was genuinely very valuable. So thank you very much. Please join us again later tonight for obviously the HC My Show with James and Nathan. Also, don't forget to join me all week on the stream streak as we move towards the path to 100 in 10 days. So that's very fun. We'll have to do something special for the 100th day. I'm not sure what, but there's loads of stuff to talk about, so just join us every day. You guys are great. Thank you for joining me today. I want to give a shout out to all of you. You guys are great. Thank you to everyone on the Patreon, and thank you to the podcast guys. Couldn't do it without you. So it's great. Fuck all you buddies. Owen, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Fuck you too, man.